Welcome to part 2 of tonight's program of the Opportunity Zones Meetup. My name is Carl Dakin, and in this section of tonight's program, we are going to talk about a case study involving a project that's being launched now that follows our Innovation Hubs model for amplifying and expanding the benefits that can come out of an Opportunity Zone investment. So to begin with, Green Plant Industries is going to be focused upon enhancing production, and we're talking about doing this with plants and extracting that are used in medicine, nutraceuticals, cosmetics, and foods. Basically, in the hemp industry, what we have seen is problems in quality. And this quality runs the range from issues of efficacy of the plant. Was it handled properly during the entire supply chain, resulting in you getting the maximum potential medical benefit from this, to things where contaminants have crept into the process, things that are either, I'll call it neutral in effect or negatory in effect, where we may see a contaminant that will make this thing not only not a medicine, but could be harmful to you. During the extraction process, we have a debate that's going on right now about CO2 and ethanol on whether the residual element that is left in the oil is something that is important or not important in the extraction process. So we're seeing a trend towards water-based types of extraction, so there is no residual to work with. And all these things that are manifested in the hemp industry are not necessarily absent from all the other botanicals that are out there. And the retailers of the products are now saying in their own self-protection, they want to see a certificate from the manufacturer, they want to see a certificate from the extraction process, and even one from the grower that may be accessible online at point of sale in order for a consumer to draw their own conclusion about how safe this particular product may be, and to be able to verify, validate that in a number of ways to show that this is a product that they can feel comfortable that it may or may not solve their problem that they're taking it for, but it certainly isn't going to cause them a new problem from the standpoint of something being in the product that you don't want in the product that could cause you harm. At the same time, a lot of these botanicals have been sold for years, decades, centuries, and there is not a lot of information about how well does it actually work. In some cases, there's lots of clinical studies on a particular plant to show that it has some help, whether you have a cold, you have pain, it may help you get to sleep easier, and that's all been studied and proven to a point. At the same time, like with hemp, we have lots of plants that are held out to the general public by different people that says this will cure this or this will do that. And there's not enough data to support that type of a claim. And so the FDA, which is the regulatory agency in the United States, is now monitoring the entire hemp industry, and it continues to monitor the nutraceutical industry and the food supplement industry to see if you're making statements about what a product might do, because without substantiation with clinical trials, that constitutes a misrepresentation of that particular product and can get you in trouble. And the FDA has already issued warning notices to a variety of vendors in the hemp industry, particularly where it's been combined with food, that at this point they don't even consider hemp to be a proper food component, and they've told them to cease and desist from doing that. Now, this flies in the face of everybody who's adding it to everything, but this is one of the issues, and what we're saying is that we want to do this for all types of botanicals, not just hemp. We want to start to create good quality supply chains. We want to be able to verify safety throughout the supply chain, quality throughout the supply chain, be able to paper this up and demonstrate who did what, where, when, and how, that may either helped or hurt this as a potential product going forward. And in the hemp industry at the moment, that doesn't exist. What we're tending to see is individual groups who will build their own supply chain from A to Z and put it on a proprietary brand label. And I'm guessing right now we have 30 different groups in Colorado who are all doing this in parallel with each other in direct competition. Some are doing more emphasis on extraction, more on the growing, some on the manufacturing, and some on the sales. But the net of it is that this is a wide open horse race right now for anybody who's in the hemp industry, and they're doing this against rapidly changing technology, rapidly changing markets, and rapidly changing regulatory environment. So for hemp and other botanicals to be an important component of the economic health of the state of Colorado, or anywhere for that matter, is we're going to try to start addressing all these problems from a collective, comprehensive standpoint rather than from a single element. So what we have in mind is to do a campus. And as a campus, this would be similar to something you might see at Kansas State, might see some of the things from the AgTech, things that you see at CSU or any of the ag colleges. But we're going to try to do this all in one location, so there's everything you need is in one place. We're going to have office facilities, laboratories. Laboratories in the hemp industry is both the extraction as well as what you consider a regular research and development facility, indoor and outdoor grow, workforce housing, meeting rooms, and classrooms. So from this, we're going to link to any other program anywhere else in the United States where we can work with them to help support their program. We're not intending to compete with growers or extractors or manufacturers. We're intending to help solidify or, in effect, quantify what is a good practice or best practice. We want to do A to A comparisons instead of apples to oranges comparisons. And we're going to bring a little more light to bear on claims that are made by people regarding whether they're better or not than somebody else. We can't have 100 different businesses all saying they're the best because the world doesn't work that way. Now, it may be true that in a given situation, a given application, a given particular type of botanical plant, they may be the best because something they're doing in their process fits that particular plant or how they're going about it. But within this campus, we want to have all the potential facilities that are shared there for everybody to use so we can start answering all these questions. This particular facility will be located in northeastern Colorado in the city of Brush within an opportunity zone. So this picture shows I-76 going east to west, but in actuality it's going more from southwest to northeast. And this is the prison facility here. It's a 7-acre abandoned prison. The facility's in great shape, about 56,000 square feet. It is tornado proof, has backup generators. It has concertina wire around the perimeter so we can secure who has access and who doesn't have access as one parcel of property. And on the other side, this whole area right here is 151 acres of farmland that is we can use for doing dirt testing. But over time, what is anticipated is we may build out workforce housing, we may put in more commercial facilities, and still leave approximately 120 acres of this for growing under different conditions, whether we're talking drip or pivot or flood irrigation or dry land, soil amendments of different kinds. We want to be able to see how different varieties of any particular plant work side by side, and including new varieties and things where they're crossbreeding different things. So it's not, again, not limited to hemp, though hemp will be one of the things that will have a lot of focus out of the gate. But any of the botanicals that I mentioned, of up to 70 plus botanicals that are commonly used in products today or might be more used in the future. We have 2 exits off of I-76 to get to the property. And the prison is currently within the city of Brush, and this property is outside the city, but we're planning to seek annexation into the city and get access to city water for this particular property. We've met with the mayor and the economic development director for Brush, and they're working to support everything that we're putting together. An option agreement now exists on this particular property, and we're working on one for the prison. Our goal is to raise enough money to take down both properties within the next 90 days in time to potentially plant crops. And like the old Pioneer and DeKalb signs, as you drive along I-76 here going to the southwest, you'll be able to see different types of plants growing during the outdoor growing season while we're working on more infrastructure elements around the prison and on the northwest side of the property. The 2 primary elements I mentioned, this is the prison with the entryway, this looking north. It had a gymnasium, a shop, because it was originally for at-risk youth vocational training. It has its own backup power. You can see the secured fence around it, and 3 different wings for tenants of the prison. So there's lots of space here to work with. We're assuming over time that we may add a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and even 5th type of business into this entity, or different type of innovation hub that may complement what we are looking at doing with the botanicals. So we've already talked to data processing people, hooking into the fiber optic ring that's in Brush so that we can do data storage. And one group I'm talking to has expressed interest in capturing the entire supply chain data within a blockchain distributed ledger format to provide a service so you could follow the progression of any particular seed from the laboratory where it was created all the way through to an end product and track it for that purpose. We're also looking at potentially a cold storage unit because some of the new processing or extraction mechanisms immediately after harvest provides for putting it into a state of frozen where it can be processed then at a later time without losing the terpenes or some of the medicinal components of the different plants. And it's true for hemp as well as hops and a lot of these things, including those that are used as flavonoids in different types of food products, that you have to capture the plant and hold it until you can properly extract everything out of it. The farmland is relatively flat. It's currently unirrigated. We've, as I mentioned, are talking with the city about crossing water over the street from the prison area into this area. We're also talking about some water rights holders further north up the highway along 76, bringing down water pipelines. But we haven't done a full quantification of how much water we're going to need at this time, but that may be something we get into in 2021. We're going to support all activities within the supply chain, starting with plant breeding. This is continuing to be an issue as people come to understand all the different components of a plant. You may have seen a couple of weeks ago that CSU got a large grant from one of their alumni out of the state of Oregon to identify and quantify and characterize the 400 plus cannabinoids that are in the hemp plant. And at the same time, there are 9 other plants that are known today, from black pepper to truffle, that also have CBD in them. That might be another source of CBD, and we were looking at that before the hemp legislation made it legal. And then we've got all the other components that are in there. One of the areas I have particular interest in is hops, and a lot of people are familiar that hops is one of your biggest ingredients in making craft beer. But you'll also find that in almost every sleeping aid that's out there on the market, that hops is one of the primary active agents in that. And there's 4 studies I know of ongoing now where they're testing lupulin as an ingredient for issues with cancer, with the liver and other parts of the body. And they don't produce it in large quantities. So again, one of the things we'd be looking at is what can you do to either change the plant or change the process to get higher volumes of those elements within the plant that can serve a medicinal purpose. We're going to look at propagation. We're seeing a lot of things with petri dish generation of plants, so that we're not going from seed and having the volatility of the genetic makeup of a plant potentially change. We are looking at growing indoors and outdoors, harvesting, extraction, storage, and all the way into manufacture. We have a large number of people we've already talked to who are starting up making their own products. They're not meeting minimum order quantities for some of the larger white label manufacturers here in Colorado or elsewhere. And so we may have a commissary style or a shared kitchen style form of manufacturing to help more of these individual companies get started. But the idea is to cover the entire span so that there's no gaps in the supply chain where an issue might creep into it and impact what we're going to do. We're going to be working with a variety of support activities, planning, which in the hemp industry is a challenge on any given day. But as we start comparing and contrasting other types of products, we'd like to have this run the entire range of botanicals. Funding will always be an issue. Brokering is coming up repeatedly, where people want us to help find financing or find seed or seedlings, particularly with some of the better varieties that may be more suitable to what they're looking at. As we were mentioning on the break, CBG is one of the cannabinoids that is now gaining more attention as maybe being better in many, many ways than CBD, but it comes in a smaller percentage makeup of a hemp plant. And so we'll be working towards varieties of plants that have a higher percentage of CBG, while at the same time we're trying to figure out what does CBG actually do. We've had conversations already with CU Anschutz about teaming with studies that they are starting now and with some other universities that are starting to study both the commercialization aspects as well as the medicinal aspects. And one of the challenges they have is they do a study on hemp oil or tincture or some of these other botanicals, and the inconsistency of the plant material that they're getting is compounded in the course of doing a healthcare study. So by able to show them that they're getting consistent material time over time, year over year, then as they do their clinical studies, they'll have a better baseline on what is actually happening and how that's working. We're going to look at certification. Right now, there's almost no certification available, only through the Hemp Authority associated with the National Hemp Association. They have a handful of very high-level programs available, and we need far more across the board. We're looking at developing skills training on every individual aspect of, how do you do a cutting for a clone to how do you put the label properly on a bottle and a final product. All the technologies that go into this are there. Again, in the hemp industry, using an example, is that up to this point in time, most people were doing one of two of the major varieties, indica or sativa varieties of hemp, which require that you manage light to the plant in order to get it to flower and move to a point where you can extract the oil. And now, in the last several months, there's been more attention on the new ruderalis variety. It's not new, it's been around forever, it's just nobody knew about it. And it automatically goes into flowering without having to manipulate the light during the growing cycle. And so we're starting to see pure ruderalis varieties or crosses between the other two varieties of ruderalis. which is also shorter, faster growing, growing to only 2 feet instead of 4 to 5 within 2 months instead of 3 to 4 months. So you might be able to get multiple crops per year with a higher output, but again, when you ask somebody, well, what is the yield on that? We run into problems on, is this information complete? Is it accurate? Is it consistent? And the answer is generally no. And then economic development-wise, Brush, Colorado is a hub in the northeastern part of Colorado. It's looking to add new industry into its backyard. We think, and the people I'm talking with up there are all very interested in this project being a success because it's going to create a lot of new jobs. We haven't done a job analysis on this yet, but it's possible that this campus 3, 4, 5 years down the road might employ over 100 people in new high-paying jobs that weren't there before, and this would be something that would last into the next few decades, if not further, if we set this up correctly and plan for it to go that far down the road. Then we're going to take a model that we call the commercial office building business model, which is we're going to rent space in this campus just like you would if you went to a commercial office building and said, I need space. And if you tell them that you want a coffee shop, they're going to put you on the first floor facing the street, where if you tell them that you want an office space, it may not matter where you're at. You could be on a floor above. It may be something where you want to do something else. So in this case, though, we'll be renting dirt. You want to take your latest variety of hemp or hops or something else and grow it outdoors. We'll have a plot where you can plant that. We'll have sensors. We'll have different types of water measurement so that you can gather the data you need to brand this and sell this to people who want to use this in subsequent seasons. At the same time, we'll have the facilities where we're going to add in more tooling, more capability, so that we can look at different forms of extraction or different types of manufacture all side by side. Now, currently there's no greenhouse facilities on this, but the intent in the long term is to have a variety of greenhouse facilities which can be attuned to the individual growth characteristics of different plants. And again, those will have high sensor loads so that we can capture data throughout the growth cycle and know how impacting the plant with different lighting or different nutritional feeds, whether it's dirt, soil, or aeroponics, is going to impact how the plant performs and what kind of yield you get out of it. So it'll be a rental type thing, and right now we're going to start looking for future tenants as part of this. So this is an economic development project where our goal is, in the long run, good long-term, good-paying jobs, not just for Brush, but for that part of Colorado and even impacting the state of Colorado. There are a lot of things about transport time, quality during the growing, harvesting, and so forth. And at the same time, the cost of some of the capital equipment is so high that you can't afford to have one on every block, or like a silo in every farming community or grain elevator. You're going to have maybe 1, 2, or 4 or 5 in the state of Colorado, just because you need to watch the cap cost relative to what you're doing with that. So as I said, we're not going to position this to compete with people who are growing or extracting or manufacturing. We're here to help them do what they do better, and we're looking to team with different groups across the state and outside the state who can benefit from this type of comprehensive activity. We're going to do fundraising. We're right now we're in the planning phase for this entire project. We're meeting with different people who are strategic partners, asking them to kick some money into the pot for planning purposes. But in a very short future, next probably about 2 weeks out, we're going to start a $500,000 equity capital campaign in an opportunity zone fund. We'll probably match that with a non-opportunity zone fund or a classical 506c type of private offering. in the event that we're not seeing enough money come in from Opportunity Zone investors, and we want to allow other people with capital to participate. But with $500,000, we would then intend to seek financing for the balance of the acquisition price, $2 million. That can come in the form of USDA guaranteed loans or may come from other sources. And with that, we'll have enough money to take ownership of the 2 parcels of property. We'll have more operating capital to work with, and then we'll go to a 3rd stage of capital raising, which may be segmented vertically based upon whether we're getting the field pivot irrigation up and running or putting water piping into the field with the irrigation. It may be a complete extraction facility. We may put more power into the building. We're looking at solar grids that can be on the building or on the land as part of the build out. We're going to take advantage of PACE financing to upgrade the environmental impact of the building. So new HVAC, maybe even some new solar to DC power lighting systems. If we do the workforce housing correctly, we may qualify for certain types of tax credits in the new market area. We're doing some experimentation with whole life insurance as a risk mitigator within the different models. And at the end of the day, our capital stack may include almost every form of capital that exists in order for any particular project to move forward. And we're in the process of defining that. But right now, it's essentially a planning grant, then an acquisition, equity raise, and then that'll be followed by a series of more specialized, targeted, dedicated types of raises, which will cover all forms of funding. Finally, we're at a point where we're talking to team members. We have reached an agreement with Cheryl Cordova to be the lead person on this project, hold the CEO slot. We're talking with other people who want to be involved because they want to be more of a comprehensive service provider to everyone who's within this particular project. And then we're moving to more classical investors who want to be part of one or more of the industries along the way, supporters who are going to be more of an economic development flavor, or people who are tenants wanting to come into the project and want to assure that there is a place for them within this project, because we don't have unlimited space at the moment. And we're going to be probably challenged to keep up with demand as we do a vertical build out on the project over the next few years. Ultimately, this could be a project that is total cost can be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. As we do everything that we can potentially do within this project, we're going to try to build to fit the demand rather than speculate and build first and hope we can fill later. We're going to have to deal with the variability within the hemp industry as one of the major factors in both how we operate and set this up. That's part of the reason we're looking to do the full range of botanicals, because we feel that that will give us additional markets, add some stability to the general model. And then we're going to be looking at other secondary but complementary industries that can stand on their own, that may also be housed in these facilities and represent a different industry within this community for job generation. So for more information on this project, feel free to contact me. You may call me or email me, and we'll be setting this up over the next few weeks with a website and all the other things that commonly go with a startup business to help you get a better understanding of what we're going to do and where you may fit into this particular project if you'd like to play a role. And there's lots of positions in the game that we're designing here. There could be 30, 40, 50 different types of ways to participate in the project that match up with your individual mission or your business mission at this time. So with this, I'll open it up for questions and try to answer any of the questions that you may have about this project or how you yourself, your business might want to play a role in this. Anyone?
Well, yeah, you still don't know what the overall initial budget or funding goal is initially that you're looking to raise.
We're going to, in the first tier, we're going to be looking at $2.5 million. So $500,000 of equity for sure, and then probably $2 million of debt financing on that. That will allow us to take down the properties in total and then still have a fairly good operating budget to start things going forward. But we're going to continue to have to, during this time period, we have to learn more about what exactly we are going to spend money on and where we're going to spend it. The building's in very good condition. We could technically move tenants in next week. We could start a co-working space and start generating revenue almost immediately. And then we're looking at the seasonality of crops for outdoor planting. Can we get the land ready in time with enough attributes to it that we can at least do some grows this year? I don't know that we'll have the full range of capabilities this year on the outdoor grow, but we'll see. The indoor grow, probably looking at about a 6-month minimum lead time before we can get a greenhouse up and start looking at continuous year-round operations. I know everybody in the state who's manufacturing greenhouses, and we're talking to them on a continuous basis because of a project I'm doing out in Delta County right now that's trying to put up a starting point towards 2 acres of grow facilities out there. And they're looking for investors right now. So if somebody's looking for something that's already further down the road, the Delta project is something I'm also happy to talk to somebody about. Other questions? Okay, well then, ordinarily, one of the things you'll see in the slide deck we're going to distribute is we have a section on resources. So that brings us to the end of part 4. I am going to walk through tonight. I don't do this every event. Some of the resources that are available. We've added a number of new sources to the list that I want to bring to your attention. And these are other groups, other organizations, other individuals who are doing good things within the Opportunity Zone, are considered a source of knowledge and something that you may want to pay attention to. You'll be getting the slide deck tomorrow morning, so you don't have to worry about rapidly writing down everything I say or talk about. But the state of Colorado is continuing to be a major advocate for Opportunity Zones, and they are going to be putting on a conference October 1st. They're putting together the program now, and we'll see how that goes. But they've come out with some new programs. For those of you who are service providers, they are creating a directory now of all the service providers in the state who are supporting Opportunity Zones. Just came out this week. And there are some new micro programs to help them, which I'm still trying to, are going to be announced next week, I guess, or in 2 weeks.
So that's a grant up to $2,000?
Yeah.
What is that? Sorry.
I don't know. I asked the question, and I have not been able to get a total answer to that yet. Then we have Ross, who's here tonight, who has created his own mapping of Opportunity Zone zones within the state of Colorado, and has additional data beyond what's currently available at the state, which give you a better idea maybe about the community where the Opportunity Zone is located. So Ross is continuing to help us all out there. We then have the video recordings. All of you are familiar with the fact that every one of these events is recorded by Steve Maltz with AdCom, who does an awesome job. And typically within a week of the event, week to 2 weeks, we'll get all the editing done, and it's posted up on YouTube, and we'll notify all of you when it's available and give you all the links. The video for the last event will be posted. It's already posted, but it'll be labeled correctly with the right descriptors and hashtags sometime tomorrow morning before I leave town. Then we have a Facebook group. This is a relatively recent group that has come in under Opportunity Fund. They're sharing information and stories and so forth, and you can get a slightly different perspective, different look at the Opportunity Zone industry as it's evolving. We have the Oz Guide, which is put out by Mendora, And it's a pretty good ongoing source of information. Again, it's kind of like a newsletter or news magazine that talks about different projects going on. That can be a good place to look for ideas. This is the one I announced just a couple weeks ago. No, this is a new one. This is the Council Development Finance Agency, CDFA. If you're doing anything in terms of economic development, urban planning, financing in a community at the municipal level, whatever, this is a top flight blue chip organization that puts on awesome programs all the time on this area. They're the ones who hosted the program on PACE financing yesterday. It's a 4-part, 8-hour program on PACE, and it was free. A lot of the stuff, there are price tags associated with it, but good quality, completely comprehensive and funding municipal projects of any shape, size, or form. Then we have this one. This is the directory that was published a couple weeks ago by the National Council of State Housing Authorities. This is a list of all the known opportunity zones that they're aware of the funds. So if you're looking for funding, you may find money from this source that aligns with your particular project. Now, most of these projects are hyper-local. A lot of them are very fixed or siloed as to what they're willing to look at, so your project may or may not be something of interest to them. But again, if you're getting into something that has either replication potential or it may be impacting a social cause, you may find something in here that matches up with you. So this is, as far as I know, it's the largest list of opportunity zone funds that exist in the United States. Then this is the Global Institute of Innovation Districts. As we've been working on embedding innovation into opportunity zones, this is a group that recently formed, and a lot of them are spin-offs from yet another institute who's been doing work on innovation districts as a organized, local, hyper-local effort to instill economic growth based on innovation. And they just formed this new group, and they're getting more active into opportunity zones as it crosses over with what they're doing.
Is this in Colorado, or do you know where this is?
Most of these people are out of the East Coast. I'm sorry, I can't recall the group they were with before, but it was more of a household name, large brand institute that does a lot of think tank stuff, and I've been following the work of the individuals for several years, and I think that they're going to again bring some new insight, different perspective to how you might want to look at an opportunity zone regardless of where it's located. And then there's me. So last but not least, we have our Meetup group. This is the link to it. We have a library which is in development, and with Nate's switch to more incentivized work, we're expecting to see this improved a lot. And then I'm available for contact on working with the zone. Right now, there are lots of things going on. The knowledge base is increasing. The growth in opportunity zones is geometrically going up. It's looking more and more like a hockey stick all the time. And as more people become familiar and the communities get involved, more businesses jump into this, I don't see this thing slowing down for the next 2 to 3 years because the incentives are still on the back end, and they're still there for the having. One of the things we're working on within the Colorado Center for Innovation and Community Capital is we're currently designing out a capital matchmaking platform that will collect substantial information on the characteristics of a business and from all the different capital sources so that we can do a better job of trying to do matchmaking where there is a fit and understanding what the restrictions or challenges will be for obtaining money from that particular money or any other form of capital from that particular source. We're probably 3 months away from having a first demo version of that particular platform, and it's difficult to project right now how helpful it's going to be, but it will demonstrate the fact that defaulting to go to your banker or an angel investor, which almost never works and statistically is proven to be a bad match, is you might be better off looking at a PACE program, looking at a local economic development fund, or taking advantage of some reason why money's been slotted or tagged for your type of business activity. And we're going to try to get all that in one place, starting with Colorado. And obviously with this project, which we've been collecting data for about 2.5 years on indoor grow, and then chasing that with the hemp industry information. We have a lot of information now that just doesn't exist anywhere. So we're going to try to get that organized and roll that out. Anything else? Well, thank you all for coming then tonight. I appreciate your listening to me talk about this. As you can see, if we can get this type of a project off the ground, it's going to be good for the hemp industry. It's going to actually may do some interesting things in botanicals that are commonly purchased from somewhere else other than Colorado. And it's going to have a major impact on the community of brush, while also potentially helping out the entire hemp industry. So our idea of this is what opportunity zones can do is that they can give the investor one more reason to put their money into a project where ordinarily they wouldn't look because they want to get the tax incentives out of it. So hopefully this will be enough compelling interest to get some people to jump. We have seen, just to comment on that the hemp industry tends to be an immediate investment with a desire for overnight gratification on their ROI, where the opportunity zone is a long-term patient capital 10-year project. And so part of what you do when you design a project is you start breaking the components apart. So you might get a different type of investor matching up with one or more of the activities or one or more of the different assets. So you get a better matching overall rather than trying to get somebody to invest in something that they like half of it, but they don't like the other half. Okay, well, thank you very much.